Going back to the original survey, one of the data points in there that sounded interesting to me was the fact that they solicit more from certain racial groups than others. Uh, there's a big push in healthcare right now to talk about health equity or
Right,
racial
disparities.
disparities in
Mhm.
healthcare,
Right.
and it just there's something there that seems like systemic racism and that they're targeting certain groups more
Mhm.
for this particular procedure. Am I
Yeah.
reading too much into that, or is that
No, oh, no, I don't think you are. I think what we don't exactly know is the content of that, right?
mm,
So I could guess that a couple things that are going on. One is I'm speculating, right? I don't
sure?
want anyone to think so. So, this is Intact America. We're not in the official
This
business
is
of
not an
speculating,
official statement. This is
right? This
Georgianne
is
having a
me,
conversation where she suggests a
right?
potential theory off the cuff.
Right. So, well, more than off the cuff, because I think about this all the time. And I think um, that because there is solicitation, that and because patients are treated differently depending on their ethnicity, their perceived ethnicity, which isn't necessarily the same as their ethnicity, and their perceived or misperceived acculturation or level of education, um, and with and with discriminatory assumptions, that it's like, okay, I've got this in brackets uneducated black mom. She doesn't know. She doesn't know.
Right.
So I'm going to have to push her really hard. I'm going to have to make her think that circumcision is really important because it's really important for hygiene, because she's going to be very sensitive to the implication that black people, you know, aren't clean. And this is a um, historical uh, bias against black people in this country, right? Against poor people too, right?
Mhm.
That so if the main argument for circumcision, which kind of always defaults to, is hygiene, then this is something that somebody who is doesn't want to be thought of as ignorant, dirty, um, or even just a pain because of who they are, might go for. We also found that uh, Latinos were pushed more. Now that they would be from traditionally non-circumcising cultures. So again, this investment in acculturation, that if you want to be a real American, I spoke to a mom today. She lives in Missouri. She's been in Missouri since she was 6 years old. She came from Mexico. And she said when her first son was born 16 years ago, they asked her, she said no, and they left her alone. And when her last two sons were born 6 and 1 year ago, she was literally badgered. She thinks that things have changed, that the badgering has gotten worse. But, she was very clear on this being um, on this being a cultural, problem. That she said, this is her words were great. She said, we got it right. She said, Latin Americans got this one right. We don't do that, and that's right. But she said the pressure is sort of to acculturate and to, if you want to be a real American. I
Hmm.
have a friend who's an OB in San Francisco, and it's so interesting because California has a lower circumcision rate, we believe, although our statistics didn't show it. We believed. And we know that there are hospitals in certain parts of San Francisco where circumcision is not common at all, but the hospital he practices in, which is a high end hospital in the city of San Francisco, he estimated to me the circumcision rate's about 80%. And there are a lot of Chinese families, and they are pushed, he said, and they, want to acculturate. And he said these are well-off people. These are not, poor immigrant laborers. These are, and so there's again a pressure to acculturate.
So it sounds like there's a possibility that doctors have unconscious biases or identity prejudices that cause them to think certain
or conscious biases.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
That cause them to think that certain parents coming in are uneducated or unclean, or that they just don't understand American culture, which might cause them to solicit more. And I would guess that if you were to ask those doctors, even if there was a conscious bias, many of them probably wouldn't admit to it.
Right.
But
I would actually maybe state it a little differently, which is that the machine wants to circumcise your child. So the machine uses whatever techniques or arguments or pressure or persuasion that will work. So when you're advertising makeup to a 13-year-old, it's different from your advertising makeup to a 60-year-old, So they're targeting their solicitation consciously or unconsciously, depending on, so if I live in New York, and if you're talking to 35-year-old first-time affluent moms, you're going to use a different messaging, talking about how intelligent, or 30-year-old, how intelligent millennials are, how they really get it. They do their research. And if you've done your research, you'll know that blah, 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 whatever
right.
it is. So I think it's a really concerted efforts, both conscious and almost instinctual and subconscious, to sell this sucker, and that's why you have consumer protection, right? That's why you don't advertise alcohol in movie theaters or wherever you don't advertise. That's why smoking, you don't see it on TV commercials, because a lot of this is subliminal and subconscious,
Thank you for listening to The Brendan Marotta Show. If you liked this episode, please share it with someone else who would also like it, and then go on whatever platform you listen to the show on and leave a positive review. If you want to support the show directly, go to brendanmarotta.com/show and subscribe there. Paid subscribers get special unreleased bonus material and live events that are only available to them. Once again, that is brendanmarotta.com/show. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you all later.